Today on the official Marvel podcast, we've got the executive producers of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, Sana Amanat, and Dario Scardapane to answer your biggest episode 5 and 6 questions.
The thing that we realized kind of coming back in is that it was actually a really appropriate turning point for Matt Murdock in his story.
The composers of Daredevil Born Again, the Newton brothers, are also here to share how they reimagined Daredevil's theme.
We were really thrilled that all the creatives were on team to kind of like bring back the original, because that's kind of what you think of Daredevil from the original series. That's just a beautiful theme.
And if you're curious about the Ultimate Universe line of comics, we're talking to Marvel Comics Senior Editor Wil Moss about where to jump in and start reading.
It's kind of built so that you can choose whether you want to dig more into the past or just start with where you start and go forward.
I'm Anthony Carboni.
I'm Victoria Yang.
And this is the official Marvel podcast.
Anthony, can you believe we're nearly halfway through Daredevil Born Again?
No, don't say it. Don't say it. I've waited so long, and I don't want the show to end, especially after what has maybe been my favorite episode of the season so far.
Well, I'm going to stop you right there, because before we dive in, we need to hit that spoiler warning.
Okay, so episode 5 of the series, like I said, maybe my favorite so far. Pretty much a standalone episode that takes place in a bank during a robbery. And we not only get to follow Matt Murdock throughout this episode, but also another familiar face from the MCU, Yusuf Khan, Miss Marvel's dad.
Oh my God, he was so good in this episode. According to executive producer Sana Amanat, who previously worked on Marvel Studios' Miss Marvel, everyone believed that she was the one who added Yusuf, played by Mohan Kapoor, to the series, but actually it wasn't her doing.
No, I did not demand it. Everyone thinks I'm inceptioning people with Miss Marvel references, and I did not do it. I did ask for getting that Miss Marvel bobblehead in there because I thought that was ridiculous, and it was very Yusuf. But to, Grania Godfrey, who wrote that episode, I believe she's the one who pushed for it. And I was very happy and grateful and elated because I got to work with Mohan again. And seeing Mohan and Charlie together, it was pretty fun and funny.
That Miss Marvel bobblehead was very Yusuf. He's so proud of his daughter. And also, it was just a little bit extra with the rhinestones all over it. Now, do you think Yusuf did that himself during his lunch hours at the bank? Or is this something he bought online? Did he find it somewhere? What do we think?
I mean, I love a crafty king, so I hope he did it himself. I hope he spends all of his afternoons just with a little teeny tiny glue stick, putting each of those little beautiful stones on his very adorable little daughter.
Oh, I love the Khans so much. I love how much they love each other.
And despite this episode being a standalone, it serves an important purpose in Matt Murdock's story. Here's Sana again, along with Daredevil Born Again executive producer Dario Scardapane.
The thing that we realized kind of coming back in is that it was actually a really appropriate turning point for Matt Murdock in his story. Like it was a testing ground for him, especially because he put away the mask. He deals with the events of Hector's death and also not being able to do anything about it because he had made this promise to himself. So being tested once again, we thought it was a fun way to be able to showcase that challenge in a type of bottle episode.
Well, and you make it, you take that in the center of the season as this claustrophobic kind of focal point.
Yeah.
He decides something in that sequence that pays off in the next episode.
Exactly. It's like he's simmering at that point and it pays off, like Dario said, towards the end of the entire season, and we kind of adjusted it that way.
As we move on to episode 6, it opens with Matt Murdock at his bedside, praying, pondering his path forward. Here's Dario again about the significance of that moment.
It's the prayer to St. Ives, and it's the patron saint of lawyers. So he's essentially asking for guidance through, should I be a lawyer? Should I be a vigilante? And in many ways, he's speaking to Foggy. He's basically remembering a set of vows that he made to himself and to his best friend about what it is to walk the path of being just. And it's difficult. So as a lapsed Catholic myself and being somebody who really responds to the Catholic imagery of Daredevil, if you see any of the iconography it is beyond there for a reason. So that prayer is the prayer to the patron saint of lawyers.
And of course, we can't not talk about the fight sequences between Daredevil and Muse, and Fisk and Vanessa's former lover, Adam. Here's Sana again discussing how second unit director and supervising stunt coordinator Philip Silvera built those moments and what it means for both Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk.
He designed it in a way that it was being intercut, and you're kind of showcasing both of them back to back. And I loved it because it just showcased the similarity between these two characters. Like, absolutely love that sequence.
Daredevil Born Again, now streaming only on Disney+. Okay, Anthony, we need to talk about the music in Daredevil Born Again.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, that Daredevil theme is just so iconic.
Oh, for sure. I just love how it's a blend of both the old and the new. Like, it's still familiar, but fresh, you know?
Absolutely, and that is no accident. The Newton brothers, who are the composers on Daredevil Born Again, were also the composers on Marvel Animation's X-Men 97, so they're very used to mixing those old and new elements together. And our friend and fellow official Marvel podcast co-host, Langston Belton, sat down with them to talk a little bit about that process. Take a listen.
All right, everyone, I'm very excited. We're having a good time. I am here with Andy Grush and Taylor Stewart, a.k.a. the Newton Brothers. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Good.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, yes, thank you for being here. Before we get into what we really want to talk about, which is, of course, Daredevil Born Again, can you tell us a bit about your relationship specifically with Daredevil? Like, what's your origin story with the character of Daredevil?
For me, I got in through the comics. I knew about Daredevil through comics. So that's kind of was my entryway into it. And I love Daredevil.
For me, my parents wouldn't let me have comic books. And so I used to ride my bike to the bookstore telling them I was going to go check out books. And I would read the comics in the store. It's pretty funny. I actually drove over to where that bookstore was a few months ago because it was similar with like the X-Men vibe. I wanted to see if it was still there. Bookstore is not there anymore over in Pasadena, but this would have been like 7th grade for me. So you're at that age where just like everything is so vivid and interesting, and those stories were so dark. And for me, Daredevil was like a darker character that had some angst. And in 7th grade, you're beginning your angst journey for the next few years, you know? So it was a real nice combination.
Nice. So you mentioned very briefly the X-Men vibe, and as a fan, was delighted to hear your Marvel Animation's X-Men 97 theme. So it's not your first time remixing a beloved Marvel theme. So how do you approach that when you have a sound and a piece of music that's already known and you want to put your own spin and put it through your own lens, so to speak?
Very carefully. First of all, as being a fan, you always get bummed when certain things are left out or ignored or something. So we were really thrilled that all the creatives were on team to kind of like bring back the original, because that's kind of what you think of Daredevil from the original series. That's such a beautiful theme. For us, it was more about, okay, how can we expand this? What's happening in the new season and what do we want to grow from there? So for us, it had more to do with Matt Murdock and what's going on with him and sort of the demons that he's fighting internally. And then we wanted to express that musically. And so we started off with this sort of almost like an internal humming. We recorded a subway noise that sounds like almost like a pad or fog coming in. And then we have this cello that sort of has delay on it, and it's moving around in the space and pitching different, moments to sort of feel like this is his sonic senses. This is sort of his abilities. So it really is, I would say the first half of the theme is brand new, which is really sort of Matt Murdock and his transition back to being Daredevil. And then, of course, we go to the OG theme that we then played organ on and choir and sort of expanded on that itself.
As fans, like, we definitely want to hear that theme. Like, if we don't hear that theme, we've failed, because that is Daredevil. And then how do we get into that world and expand on it or sit with it or whatever the situation is. And it's nice to have two of us, because that way Taylor and I can sort of like bounce ideas off of each other before it goes to the Marvel team, the showrunner and directors. Like, we can have an internal conversation, like, do we think we're doing this justice in the right way, you know?
So what is the process like? How do you decide which elements to keep? You know, how do you strike that balance between the old and the new? And what is that like deliberation process like in terms of you guys coming up with this new theme?
It ends up ultimately being a filtering process between the two of us. We both need to be excited about it. And it helps when it's fresh ears for the other guy to hear and be like, I really like this. I don't like this. It's a process of us going off separately. And then we just write separate ideas, and then we bring them together, and then we'll either write on each other's ideas or give notes and kind of go from there. And I think for this process, we approach several characters like that, not just Matt Murdock.
Yeah. Can you walk us through another character and a little bit of the process of coming up for the sound for that character?
Yeah. I mean, based on the script and obviously the screen time, we're able to expand or deep dive into characters more than others. Like for Vanessa, for instance, we ended up actually writing 2 themes without giving away everything. There's things that happen in the show that sort of draw why she needs 2 themes or goes in these 2 different directions, because she's, obviously the wife, and she's also Vanessa. And then for one of the themes, we wanted to play with sort of this feeling of sneakiness, sort of almost like a snake, almost like a slithering feeling. And so we ended up having the players sort of slide into notes and pitching into it. And so it feels very much like there's someone, slowly coming in and doing something maybe underhanded. And we played with that and some vocals. We have a soprano singing. And then what's interesting is that some of the sounds of one character will bleed into another character sometimes, which was very deliberate, because sometimes what's going on in the story, you would think that belongs to one of the characters, but really it ends up becoming into the space of the other character. So for the viewer and the listener, sonically what's happening, how that's going to affect, what their perception is of that character.
We also discussed like the idea of the city being a character, like, musically. And I think that where we ended up landing was we kind of decided that with Matt's background and the church, we would use the church as sort of our sort of sonic backscape of tone, with like church organ and choir. Matt deals with a lot, as we all do every day. But in looking back, he has moments where he's recalling his past. There's a big part of his past is obviously how he was raised. So we wanted to have sort of a backdrop of that feeling throughout, so that you would like not feel like you're in a church the whole time, but you would be reminded that that's sort of a part of who he is.
You talked about evoking Matt's upbringing. What were some of the other themes you play with in the score, maybe that are not so intimate, that are those bigger moments, those big sweeping moments that are in this wonderful superhero show?
I think, interestingly enough, when you have sort of these nemesis or these characters that are, the bad guy, quote unquote, we had moments where they were playing very soft. Like for Muse, we use these bells that are playing this repeating motif. And then we use this instrument that's kind of like a theremin and almost like a singer, but it's called a therevox, and it plays really high, and it's really kind of creepy and disturbing. And then we did these whispers that are happening, just almost to be like he's talking to himself, or there's voices sort of in his head, which was great because you could just use just a snippet of it of these bells or these voices, and you would immediately know that, you know, Muse is lurking somewhere, or there's some influence of that.
Yeah, and there's a fun bit we did for Bullseye. You know, his character is so complex and so interesting, and we wanted it to be kind of like unruly and wild, especially for sort of what's happening with his character. For him, it was like less about a thematic like vibe and more about the chaos of a character. We have the full orchestra, we have the choir like chumming along, like playing for his sections, but we have a solo violinist just basically like doing some crazy wild articulations for him that were kind of specific. So it was about playing with the musician to find that sound and figure out like how that works for his character.
And I think for his abilities too, the music really connected with his sort of like his talents, and you have him close up, and I feel when he's fighting, he's a lot more vulnerable. But from a distance, he's incredibly dangerous. He just, you know, throwing these, he has such great accuracy. So the music needed to reflect that, and I thought that the Search and Discovery really led us to that.
Yeah, and Kingpin as well. He's a huge character, and he's daunting, and he's all the things that we know. And that was a sort of a trick as well, because it was like his music is very large, but it's also weaved into Vanessa. So we have a lot of moments where you're on a big sort of robust kick of some of his music, and something comes up with Vanessa, and you can see that he's recognizing, does or does not want to make a decision based on what she thinks, you know, which is very interesting for his character based on what we all know. So it was fun to sort of play with the juxtaposition between the two of them and how that musically tied together.
I think too, interesting that you brought him up, because he's sort of this character where like you're not sure where he's going. You know, is he trying to change himself, to improve, and to what degree, and why, or is he not? There's this sort of pressure that's building him, and it's this constant pressure that you just feel like it could explode any second. And so I feel like we really had this, besides just melodically having some stuff for him, he had this sort of like constant, almost like a ticking that just keeps going, but we played it with strings in a lot of places, and it was great. I mean, the performances these guys are doing, they're just pouring their hearts out, and I feel like it's at a cinematic level.
Guys, thank you so much. I want to talk to y'all forever. I just want to hang out and just talk music with you guys. Thank you both so much for talking to us. It's always great to hear creators talk about their process. So this was awesome, and I can't wait to see more. And now go back and watch the show and listen to, knowing all this little insight into the music of this show. So thank you guys so much for talking to us today.
Thank you, Langston. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Hey, Victoria, what do you know about the Ultimate Universe comics?
Not a whole lot. I know it's an alternate universe where Spider-Man is married with kids and Storm is dating Killmonger. And I know it's fairly recent. I'm a little more familiar with the old Ultimates universe, but the new one I'm just dipping my toes into.
Those are definitely things happening in the Ultimate Universe. And yes, it is also very new. You would have gotten bonus points if you had mentioned Ultimate Peter Parker's amazing beard, though. He looks good. He looks really good in the Ultimate Universe. That's all I'm going to say.
I think all guys look better with a beard. Let me just put that out there.
Thank you.
Yours especially, Anthony.
Thank you. It's a shame. It's a shame, listeners, that this is an audio medium. That's all I'm going to say. I also am a little behind on the Ultimate Universe, so I decided to reach out to Marvel Comics senior editor Wil Moss, who's in charge of the comic book line, and help me find out where to start. Will, thanks so much for joining us. We are heading into the second year of the Ultimate Universe here.
Yeah, honestly, it feels like it kind of just began. Sometimes I can't believe we're this far in already.
Yeah, it's been moving fast. And first of all, I think a question that a lot of people have is, oh yeah, the Ultimate Universe. I remember that. This is the Ultimate Universe that I read,
20 years ago, right? This is the same thing.
Right. No, not the same thing. We taking the same name and the same kind of core concept. Like that original line was all about fresh, new, modern takes on our big heroes, but it's not the same universe. It's not the same continuity. This is its own separate thing. It just shares the name.
So this is not the universe that Miles Morales came from originally. This is a new and exciting Ultimate Universe.
Yes, there's a little bit of connective tissue to the original, and we can get into that. But right, nobody needs to have read anything from the original Ultimate Universe to get this new Ultimate Universe.
It sounds like it's a pretty clean, fresh start.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of built so that you can choose whether you want to dig more into the past or just start with where you start and go forward. All the books are pretty standalone. They connect and they'll continue to kind of thread together a bit further in, but you could read just one book. You could just read just Spider-Man and be fine. There's stuff about the larger world that's part of that series, but it's not something where you have to go read the other stuff in order to actually get it. Everything's in these books. It's Spider-Man, it's Black Panther, it's X-Men, and it's the Ultimates. Like those are the core heroes of this line.
And then the Ultimates it's the Ultimate Universe version of the Avengers, basically, right? This is your big team-up book.
Yeah, Ultimates is kind of the one that's most in sync with the larger story of the Ultimate line. The X-Men and Black Panther and Spider-Man are very focused on like each character's own world. The Ultimates deals with the whole world. Ultimates is a book about the fight against the forces of evil that control and created this whole world. Ultimates is the bigger picture book.
Let's talk about that, this sort of inciting incident that kicked everything off. Tell me about the new Ultimate Universe and tell me about the Maker.
Sure. He's the tie to the original Ultimate Universe. He's the Reed Richards of the original Ultimate Universe. That original Ultimate Universe is dead. It was destroyed. He escaped to the main Marvel Universe, Earth 616. He's crazy and he's evil. And so he, after living on 616 for a while, knows he can't go back to his own world, is, tripped up every time he tries to do something by the heroes of Earth 616. So he decided that he is going to leave Earth 616 and create his own world in his own image where everything will go as he wants it to. So he steals a bunch of technology and most crucially some information from the heroes of Earth 616 that allows him to go to a world much like Earth 616, but it's just a little bit different. He goes there at a point in time with information on the origins of heroes and stops any of those heroes from ever becoming the heroes they're meant to be. Best example is he stops the spider from biting Peter Parker when he was a high school student back at that experiment. And so this is the world that our heroes are now operating in. It's something where they're coming to be heroes when everything's stacked against them. There's not outright like supervillains in the world. It's just that everything's been set up by corrupt and bad people. This is the world where there are heroes waking up and kind of realizing we got to change the world. The people of this world need better.
If we've got the Maker, do we have an opposite to the Maker? Do we have somebody who, because the heroes don't even know they're supposed to be heroes. So who's setting this world right?
Sure. I mean, everybody's doing their part, but it's in terms of, the opposite of the Maker, it's got to be Tony Stark, Iron Lad in the Ultimates. It was revealed to him, like he had a harsh moment where he had to learn that his dad was part of all this and that there's this figure, the Maker. So Tony's decided to do everything in his power to fight the Maker. He's young, he's idealistic, he hasn't given up hope, and he's built a whole team of superheroes to help him stop the Maker and change the world. So the Maker blocked all the heroes from ever becoming the heroes they're meant to be, but he's such a egotistical, arrogant guy. He kept records of how these people became heroes, and he kept things like the spider that bit Spider-Man. And Iron Lad's got that stuff. He's been thus giving all these heroes who never became the heroes the knowledge, the tools to become the heroes. He gave Peter Parker the spider. Peter made the choice to let it bite him. He's been activating all these heroes throughout the world.
And so if you want to see the Maker sort of start off this kind of meta narrative, this larger picture that's going on, is there a book that you would point people to read sort of the kickoff of this?
Yeah, Ultimate Invasion was the miniseries that began this whole new Ultimate line. That's by Jonathan Hickman and Brian Hitch.
So let's talk a little bit about this. Let's drill down into some of these differences between these heroes. I've been reading Ultimate Spider-Man. I'm a huge Spider-Man guy, and I have been really enjoying this different idea of Peter coming into his own. This is Hickman writing and Marco Cacchetto on art. And tell us a little bit about Ultimate Spider-Man.
Sure. So Ultimate Spider-Man, the premise is that, Peter never got bit in high school. He never got the powers, never became Spider-Man. So he's 35 years old in this Ultimate Universe when he gets the powers, when he becomes Spider-Man. And, the big thing is that he's married to Mary Jane in this universe. They've got 2 kids. So this book's kind of about what does that mean for somebody who has this experience when they're not in their formative years, when they're not like a teenager, when you had to learn the lesson of great power, great responsibility. It's somebody who's an adult has already a lot of responsibilities with family and kids and all that stuff. What does that mean when this mantle of hero is thrust on you then, or when you choose to become the hero then?
Then we have Black Panther. We've got Brian Edward Hill with art by Stefano Caselli. And the previous Ultimate Universe did not have an Ultimate Black Panther book. So this is kind of a cool new thing that y'all are doing.
Yeah. And, this book it's kind of like our war book of the line. Like the Wakanda in this universe, it was hidden in the 616 for a while, but at this point it's been known and public for a while. And in this new Ultimate Universe, it is only recently of other people learned of its existence. So it's about the people from the Maker's group of bad guys, the Maker's Council, Ra and Khonshu. Together they kind of form in this world Moon Knight, the power of Moon Knight. The 2 of them that run the area that is basically the continent of Africa, going to war with this holdout that they didn't know existed up until just recently.
So because we're in this sort of early area here, or this early timeline of discovery, how does that make T'Challa different?
Like Peter, he's actually married as well. He's married to Okoye from the Dora Milaje. It's more a marriage of political union than one of romance. It makes things a little interesting, especially when Storm comes into play. When Aurora enters his life, it creates a little bit of friction there. Storm and Killmonger in this world are partners. They're freedom fighters. They've been fighting the forces of Ra and Khonshu on their own. And so they get involved with Wakanda once Wakanda kind of opens itself up and become kind of reluctant allies. They resent Wakanda and they provide another new way for T'Challa to look at the world. It's like both of them are just kind of unlike anybody T'Challa's ever met before in his life, in his privileged life as a king.
Love that. And then we have Ultimate X-Men by Peach Momoko. We're talking about Storm, but Ultimate X-Men is wildly different than the X-Men we know. This feels like the one where there's the most change from the 616.
For sure. Yeah. Peach, she's a genius. She's a phenomenal artist, phenomenal writer, a phenomenal world builder. So once we got Peach involved with this line, we definitely just wanted to give her, as much landscape to play with. And then the idea of letting Peach reinvent mutants and the X-Men in this world was very exciting. And she's done some incredible, really cool, interesting stuff with these characters. They're all in Japan, all set in a high school. It's about basically a bunch of high schoolers learning about these powers that they didn't know they had. The main 2 characters in this, we've got Armor and a character named May Storm. She has powers like Storm, and she's heard of Storm in Wakanda, this freedom fighter in the news who had powers much like hers, and she took inspiration, took on the name May Storm. And they meet more mutants as they go along, and they have formed an alliance with fellow high schoolers, and it's about them kind of learning the truth about the world, but in a much more insular way.
And then, of course, we have the Ultimates. Tell us about the Ultimates. Who's on the team? What's going on?
Yeah. Dennis Camp and Juan Frigeri, the creative team of this book. And like you mentioned earlier, this book is basically it's the resistance to this world that is just built on bad guys, basically. And it's building up a team that can fight this, that can change things. We've got Iron Lad And also the Reed Richards of this world is Dr. Doom. The Maker trapped his counterpart away and tortured him and turned him into Doom. But he's still got the heart of the Reed that like we know from the 616. He's a good person. He's just had a lot of trauma in his life so far, but he's working alongside, it's him and Iron Lad who are the ones who spearhead the whole Ultimates team. One of the first things they do is they go back in time and take Captain America out of the ice and bring him to the present. So the book sees them kind of activating other heroes, Ant-Man, Wasp. The Hawkeye is a case where Iron Lad's created these like origin boxes kind of that have the information and the tools. They send them to the people that they were supposed to go to, but sometimes they end up in other hands. And Hawkeye's a case where that happened. It was this thing that was supposed to go to Clint Barton. For whatever reason, it didn't, ended up with somebody else. And now this world has a totally new Hawkeye. And that's happened a couple of times. So it's a team with familiar faces, familiar names, but a lot of differences from our world's Avengers and even the original universe's Ultimates team.
We have the latest addition to the Ultimate Universe line here. We've got Ultimate Wolverine with Chris Condon and Alessandro Cappuccio on art. This is another character who is different than the one we know.
Yeah, the high concept of this one is basically like Wolverine is the Winter Soldier of this world. The Maker, what he did with Wolverine is basically he is the Weapon X program of this world. He put Wolverine in this thing where his memory's been wiped, been infused with adamantium, and when he comes out, he serves the people who run the Eurasian Republic of this world, the Russia of this world. It's three of the Maker's Council, Colossus, Magic, and Omega Red. And they're the bad guys of this book. And they control Wolverine. So it's about him trying to break through that programming.
The Maker basically set this world spinning.
Yeah. The Maker's been locked away in his own kind of place, the city. He's got this dome is put up around the city that's trapped him in there. But there's a time frame on that. 24 months, he's going to come back out. And he's going to be a little mad that he's been trapped in there. Not only that, but it's in the city that he's in, time moves faster. So he'll have been in there developing who knows what kind of threats, what kind of weapons, what kind of horrible scenarios. So they're ticking clock for all of this. And another thing about this Ultimate line is that it happens in real time. So the first issue of Spider-Man takes place in January within that world. The second issue takes place in February of that world. So we know that the Maker's coming out in December of 2025. And so that's when everything's going to kind of come to a head, where the heroes are going to have to step up and prove that, that they're actually capable of being heroes and protectors of this world.
Well, this is great. Is there anything that you can tease? I mean, obviously, big things are coming. The Maker is about to emerge. Is there anything else that you can tease for people that's coming in the Ultimate Universe?
Yeah, well, I mean, one other thing that we've got coming up, we announced just recently, is the Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion miniseries. It's written by Dennis Camp and Cody Ziegler, and it's drawn by Jonas Scharf. And that features Miles Morales, who's, is in the 616 universe, coming to this new Ultimate Universe. It's a really fun story to see, like, a fresh perspective on all these new characters from somebody who has some experience with Ultimate Universes. So that's a really cool book starting in June.
That's amazing. Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Will, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, sure. Happy to be here. Nice talking with you.
While Daredevil Born Again has introduced us to journalist B.B. Urich, it's another Urich, B.B.'s uncle in fact, who's celebrating their anniversary. 47 years ago today, Ben Urich, who you may remember from the earlier Daredevil TV series, made his comic book debut in Daredevil number 153. Created by writer Roger McKenzie and artist Gene Colan, Ben Urich is a star investigative reporter for the Daily Bugle. He wasn't always, though. He started as a copy boy for the Daily Bugle while in college. Eventually, he worked his way up to being a reporter, and over time, made a name for himself investigating both petty and organized crime in New York. Ben's career skyrocketed, but despite his success, he hoped to break a major story, something that would earn him the Pulitzer Prize. This led him to focus on the costumed hero, Daredevil. After hours of research, Urich deduced Daredevil's secret identity as Matt Murdock, going as far as identifying the events that led to Murdock becoming Daredevil. However, he empathized with the hero, and after working with the masked vigilante and confirming his conclusions, he decided that what Daredevil was doing for New York City outweighed his own desire for fame. So he burned the files, keeping the secret all to himself. Since then, Uric has worked alongside several street-level superheroes like Spider-Man, Jessica Jones, Elektra, She-Hulk, and more, while also becoming a major thorn in the side of New York City's organized crime.
Next time on the official Marvel podcast, we continue our coverage of Daredevil Born Again with executive producer Dario Scardapane.
We're back. We're all in this together, and we're back and going on a hell of a ride.
That's it for today, and if you haven't already, feel free to drop a comment, leave a review, and give us those 5 stars, please.
Yeah, let us know how we're doing. Maybe even share us with a friend.
This episode has been hosted by Anthony Carboni and myself, Victoria Yang.
Our producers are Jasmine Estrada and Anita Flores.
Thanks to our Senior Manager of Audio Production and Development, Brad Barton, and Production Manager, Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Rye Dorsey.
Our theme music by Ida Akbal.
Executive producers are Larissa Rosen and Jesse Berger.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.